If we look at the human condition, our behaviour, very simply and straightforwardly, free of denial, just as honest as day is long, the explanation of the human condition is right there in front of you. Because we're obviously conscious thinking animals, but we must have been instinctively controlled like other animals to begin with. Then we acquired a conscious mind, probably some 2 million years ago. So we start thinking for ourselves because we're self-adjusting systems now. But we've got instincts that have got their own orientations. So the conscious mind is inevitably going to get into conflict with the instincts. So I use this analogy of a stork flying up the coast of Africa, which is perfectly instinctively orientated. Through natural selection, it's acquired that, you know, where to fly, where not to fly. Don't go across the Sahara, you get frizzled. Because only storks that had the genetic makeup to fly there got frizzled. So now all storks genetically know where to fly. But that's not an understanding of where they should fly. That's an orientation acquired through natural selection. Natural selection can give species orientation, but not understanding. So what would happen if we grab one of these bloody storks and we whack a fully conscious brain on his head and we jump in a light, ultralight, and we fly along behind him to see what happens? We'll see the human condition emerge in the first day. Because what's that stork going to do? He's flapping along with all the other storks. They haven't got a big conscious brain yet, but he has. He starts thinking for himself. There's an island, I think I'll go down and have a few of those apples or have a rest. He thinks, heads off down toward the island, carries out his own experiment in self-adjustment because he's conscious. And he's only going to find out what are the right understandings by experimenting. So he has to be brave enough to experiment. But immediately, so we see him fly off course down to the island because the flight path doesn't go off course, it goes across the island. And then we see him hesitate. We're in the ultralight watching him. The whole human thing is going to happen right before our eyes. So he hesitates. Oh, he thinks, because you can imagine what's happening. He thinks, well, if I fly back on course, my instincts are going to be really happy with me. And all the other storks are obeying their instincts. They're going to be happy. Everyone's going to be happy because... But my conscious mind's not happy. It's not finding knowledge. I've got to persevere with his search for understanding. So he hesitates, thinks about flying back on course, knows that'll make him feel good, but he's not going to find knowledge. And he says, no, I've got to persevere with his search for knowledge. So he heads off towards the island, right? And now his instincts are going to get really loud and criticise him. You know, we've got instincts that make us want to drink water or, you know, eat food or something. We can defy them. We've got a conscience that wants us to do it. We can defy that. We can override it and say, no, I don't want to drink water or I don't want to obey my conscience. So we do have instincts and we can defy them. So old Adam Stork, we call him Adam Stork because it's like the story of the Garden of Eden with a different ending. So old Adam Stork flies off towards the island, perseveres with his heroic search for knowledge, but he's got to live with this criticism. So how is he going to cope with that criticism? He's only got three choices. He can block it out, he can get angry with it, or he can try to prove it's not deserved that he's bad for flying off course. He's going to become insecure, needing to validate himself all the time. So he needs a win, some reinforcements. He's going to become angry, egocentric and alienated. Ego means conscious thinking self. His ego is going to become centred or focused on trying to validate himself. So old Adam Stork's become angry, egocentric and alienated. But if we stand back from that, who's the hero of that story? Old Adam Stork, because he had to have the courage to defy his instincts and fly off course and search for knowledge. And ultimately to find the ultimate knowledge you needed, which is the explanation of the human condition. But to find that, you had to find out about nerves and genes, how one's an insightful learning system, and one's not. One can give species orientations. One's orientating. We had orientating instincts. When the insightful learning system emerged, it had to challenge the instincts for the control of our life. And when that happened, there was this war. And if you want to work out how we solve that war, well, just look at Adam Stork. If he could have sat down a limb right there before day one, before the shit hit the fan, if you like, and had a talk with his instincts and said, now listen, just hold it, you guys. You instinctively know where we should and shouldn't fly, but you don't understand a damn thing. I need to understand the world. I'm using this conscious mind. So by all means, tell me when I fly off course, but don't criticise me in effect, you know. I'm a conscious mind that needs to understand cause and effect. You're a you're a gene-based learning system that can give species orientations, but you can't understand the world. So I need to search for understanding, right? And supposedly then the two parts of himself would have understood each other and you would have reconciled the two factions. But he's in a catch-22. He's got no knowledge. This is day one of starting to think. He's got no ability to explain anything, let alone the human condition. It's going to take humans, in fact, 2 million years to find that knowledge. You have to learn about genes and nerves and how the different information systems work before he can reconcile himself. So he's got 2 million years of having to live without any defence for himself. So at all that time, all we had, sure we tried to civilise it and restrain it, all we had was anger, egocentricity and alienation as our defence. We had to live alienated, hiding in the cave, because we couldn't face the truth, we couldn't defend ourselves. But now that we can, because that story, the Garden of Eden story in Genesis is the same story but a different ending. In the Genesis it says, we once lived in the Garden of Eden, obviously in a pre-human condition, innocent state. Then we took the fruit from the tree of knowledge because it was desirable for gaining wisdom, meaning obviously we became conscious. And then we became evil monsters and were chucked out of the Garden of Eden. But this story says, no. Adam and Eve, when they became conscious, took the tree of knowledge, were the heroes. They had to suffer becoming. We had to march into hell, like the song The Man of La Mancha. We had to march into hell for a heavenly cause. That's the paradox of the human condition. We had to suffer becoming upset in order to find these understandings that would liberate us from upset. We had to lose ourselves to find ourselves. That's the paradox of the human condition. We had to suffer, had to march into hell, fly, of course, become corrupted, in order to find the knowledge that would allow us to master our brain and reconcile ourselves with our instincts and get criticism off our back and become a liberated, transformed species. So that's this journey. So that's an explanation that dignifies humans. It says we're good and not bad, right?